Do you see a time when Vermont is sitting there with trash that they can't send anywhere?
Yes, I do.
I've got a couple segments for you on the recycling industry in Vermont right now, spring 2018. Alive or dead, on life support, where are we? And then a second segment on why are we even talking about this? And the flip side of the coin, our looming trash crisis, which is closer now than it's ever been since I've been alive. Taking us through these two segments is going to be this guy, Trevor Mance. He knows his stuff. He's with TAM Waste Management. Of note, these segments are not going to be 3 to 4 minutes long. We're going to spend some time with this. Last thing I'll leave you with is this. I used to hate recycling because you had 24 different containers for 24 different things. Nowadays, it's all zero sort. So here's a plug for zero sort. You simply take your plastic, you simply take your cans, you simply take your glass, you throw it into one container, you take this down to the transfer station, you fling it into an even bigger container, you go, wow, that was incredibly easy. You look around because you're sure someone's going to yell at you, and nobody does because this is how recycling is done now, and it is easy. And when the first time I did it, I swear to God, I thought this was too easy and too cheap to last. And as we're going to find out in these next two segments, that could very well be true. Plastic.
So this is number one plastic. This is a commodity that right now is not great. This does cost more to separate and bale than it does return revenue to us. So when we see this commodity do well is when oil is above about $80 a barrel. So on the pro side, we have cheap oil right now. On the con side, it has a negative effect on recycling because that's what this is made of. So when oil gets down below a certain level, it just doesn't pay to recycle. All right, so without a magnet, I can't tell if this is tin or aluminum. We'll start with tin. If this is a tin can, which I actually think it is, tin is a star performer in any recycling mix. So historically, tin has been returning good amounts of money. It is a paying component of recycling that we can count on. It does fluctuate. We had a huge boom in scrap prices, believe it or not, in 2008 and 2009. We colorfully call it the redneck gold rush, where there was so much scrap metal coming in. We saw prices hit $300 and $400 a ton, only to see it in 2013 and 2014 go down to $40 a ton. So if it was aluminum has been very consistent. That is a commodity that we can also count on. It far in excess of what it costs to separate. Aluminum foil, aluminum tin can, or aluminum cans, both great commodities. As of recently, with the new tariffs that are proposed back at the US from China, the retaliatory tariffs of aluminum pricing, this will be worth less. Sadly, in the next coming couple of months, we're already seeing aluminum prices drop because it's so important to remember that we are on a global market. It is not just what the US consumes. The glass bottle. So the glass bottle is our arch nemesis. The glass bottle, Haas, is a problem. It's great when it's solid. Unfortunately, we don't get them in this form too often. Usually we get them crunched up, they're mixed in with the paper, and they're big jagged things that we worry about the workers on the sorting line cutting their hands on. Glass is a very hard commodity to recycle back into glass products. And the reason is when you have a brown one, and I'm glad you brought a brown one to give an example, they can never make this clear again. So when you mix your brown and your green and your clear cullet, you can't dye it back to clear. There is no clear dye, if you will.
Got it.
So what we typically see is that this goes up our recycling line. It causes a lot of damage on the rubber star screens. It causes worker safety concerns like we talked about. It wears out the metal components and the bearings because that sand gets into the components. And then at the end of it, most glass in the United States is used as either landfill cover, so they cover the garbage at the end of the day, landfill road base, and then that's to build roads in and around the landfill, so a substitute for aggregates like stone. And then a smaller percentage of it goes into pipe bedding, into agricultural uses where they drain fields with trenches. And then the highest use, which we're trying to implement the new machines in our plant, is to make it into mound sand to use as septic systems. It's costly, and it's a lot of work to clean it up enough out of a single stream system to make it work, and we're hoping we can do it.
What do you think of that?
So this is another challenge. It's unrecyclable in our system.
And this is a new challenge, right?
This is a new challenge. This is Terra packs and these foil multi-dimensional, commodities in this. So we've got a foil liner, then we've got plastic on the inside.
Right.
It's functionally impossible to recycle this in a single stream system.
And I'm seeing these more and more, or am I?
The amounts are amazing. So this is another evolution in lightweighting. So what we've seen in all commodities, and it's really kind of interesting. A lot of people talk about how much weight the recycling is. If anybody's lifted up a aluminum can today versus 20 years ago, or a steel can today versus 20 years ago, it's extremely light compared, and even plastic. We're seeing plastic water bottles, now you can crunch them up, and it used to be that they'd hold their shape more, so they're so thin. So this is also lightweighted. This is an alternative to box board. So instead of getting cereal in a box board or granola in a box, we get them now in these Terra packets, and they act like, in our single stream recycling, we do things by density, we do things by shape mostly, and we do things by magnetism. So one of the first steps
and those are those big machines you're talking about where zero sort is all thrown into one big...
Yeah, so all recycling's mixed together, and then it goes up. The first step is it goes up a conveyor, we pull out the contamination, it then goes over a star screen which separates big cardboard from everything else, so it floats the cardboard off. Everything else falls through. It then goes to a glass breaker, we remove all that glass, and then it goes to a paper screen. And because this looks like a piece of paper and acts like a piece of paper, it's like the duck. If it looks like it, acts like it, quacks like it, it's a duck. So these go up, they float up with the paper, and they become contamination for our paper stream. So they create a lot of problems because they don't act like what they actually are. And truthfully, because there's such a multi-mix of materials, it's unrecyclable. So
I'll follow up on that question again that I did with the glass. This almost looks like a new form of packaging that maybe we don't want as a society.
This is my personal view. I think that the best help to recycling would be for customers to demand that the packaging is recyclable. What you just touched on, like we need consumers to say, no, I don't want polystyrene. We don't want styrofoam. We want something that's recyclable.
Got it. I brought you an Amazon box.
Yes. I've never seen one of these. Actually, Amazon is the savior of cardboard recycling. That cardboard is a shining star in the recycling, and another otherwise dismal landscape right now, unfortunately. So cardboard is highly recyclable. We don't care about the tape, that's fine. We don't care if this had some staples in it, that's fine. This is great stuff. This is what we want. This is what's keeping our plant afloat right now. Between that and the metals, those are the shining stars. The mixed paper is really not a commodity that's making money, it's losing a lot. The plastics are depressed because of oil, but the cardboard is definitely a great one. So food scraps, yes, it's been a few years that's been out there as a law. It was anybody that produced 18 tons of food waste per year was required by law to separate that and do something different with their food scraps. We have a compost facility. We take in a lot of the business's food scraps from the area.
Were you surprised at the amount of waste that showed up?
I was and I wasn't. TIM started our organics facility before there was a law. And the reason why I wanted to be involved in organics is it was a day that I was dumping a supermarket's compactor, and every week we were dumping 8 tons of food waste, and it hit my environmental bone and said, why are we not doing something with this resource?
Right.
It's the most easily recycled. It is tangible, which I love to show people that, hey, we took this pile of food and we turned it into this pile of dirt. And it was just a great idea to start. And it's still a great idea today. What the future of organic separation is, by 2020, the state has said that even on the residential side, that we need to separate our organics. It doesn't mean that you hire a hauler to take it. It means that you can do a home composting, or you can do chicken feed or something else with that food. The pragmatic side of me questions whether or not that can be done at a cost that's palatable, because it's a lot of driving to go 3-4 miles back on some of these back roads and pick up a bucket of banana peels, and that has a cost.
I see that too.
We'll see how that shakes out. There's some rumblings that maybe that won't happen in 2020. At this point, it's on the books. We're going to plan for it.
Now, you said something interesting earlier about food banks. What is that?
So the biggest success of the universal recycling law, the organics component, is not composting. It's actually food recovery. Now when we go to Price Chopper, we go to these restaurants, or we go to these large institutions, and we have all these totes lined up in the back, and there's 27 totes lined up because they start off with saying we need 5 totes, and then they fill the 5 totes, and then it's 10 totes.
And what's a tote?
A tote's like a 65-gallon, like a garbage can at your house.
Gotcha.
And they're realizing, they see the whole row of totes, and now it's tangible to them, and they say, wow, we throw away a lot of food. So the next logical thing was, well, we got to stop paying TAM to haul all this food away. Let's do something different. So what a lot of big places have done is they freeze the food at before midnight of the day that it expires. So they pull it off the shelves. They've changed how they stock, and they freeze it and they send it to Vermont Food Bank. So 40% increase in food bank donations. So humans are getting the food. This is a massive success. So
did anybody know that that might be the good thing that came of this, other than the recycling good?
They thought that there would be an increase. I didn't think that there would be, and I think that many people were surprised. Maybe there were some astute people that realized how much, but it is a shock. So it's a difficult thing, because that's the pro, and I always try to be the optimist. The con is that we went out there, we sized our facility, we sized everything, and so we saw food waste spike, and then we saw food waste plummet, because people identified there's something else that we can do.
Just like the recycling market.
It's a difficult market, and the other struggle of compost is we are somewhat going the way of dairy farmers, and that is that there is a market for compost, and so that market, now that there's more compost, because all of these recycling and compost facilities throughout the state have sprung up to take these food waste accounts, now there's more compost, so the compost value has dropped. And so we make more compost, and then the compost drops in value. So it's this cycle where we just keep producing, like the dairy farmers with the milk. When you don't make enough money because you can't sell the milk for what you need, you make more milk, and then the price drops. So we're struggling with how to create new markets. I have to consolidate my thoughts because I have a lot of emotion about recycling. I have the pragmatic part of me that has a hard time to put so much effort into something that does not give a return right now. But we have to put that in the context that the alternative to this is that we use more natural resources. The alternative to create our products. The alternative is that we consume more lands with landfills. And that has a cost. So while we are so focused all the time on what the value of what's at hand, we as Americans often forget to look at the total cost structure by not doing something. But the other thing to remember is we do have a law that requires us to recycle this. That law was not created because this made all the financial sense in the world. That law was created because we do have these swings in the market. And when the market's down, the state DEC kind of falls back on that law to say, no, we have to do it. And when markets are high, there's no discussion anymore about the law because everybody wants the stuff. recycling, it's so quick to say, I'm not going to recycle this commodity anymore. And then it takes years to get that mindset back to, no,
Yes.
it is good.
Right.
So I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't want to come off that, hey, don't recycle glass, and hey, don't recycle the plastics, because it does swing. It is a commodity. What I wish for is to have more consistent things that we could budget better and grow our business around that. But we're not given those cards. But the thing is it needs to happen for so many other reasons. We have to start looking at the total cost of things and then develop what the value of them is.
So there you go, the recycling market in 2018. In part 2, Trevor's going to explain to us how things got so bad. Can they ever get better again? And we're also going to spend time on what many think is the real problem, the looming trash crisis that's about to slam into Vermont in a very short period of time. Now, I've been hearing about this looming trash crisis since I was in my 20s. And after talking with Trevor, I get the sense for the first time that it is almost upon our doorstep. And I'm going to be fascinated to see how we as Vermonters decide to deal with it, because I don't think it's going to be cheap. Spring is called garden hose spring because in the spring everyone takes their broken garden hoses and they stick them in here. They can't be recycled. Don't stick them in here. Throw them away. And that goes for Christmas lights during the holiday period. Don't stick them in here. Just throw them away. All right, till next time, this is Haas, GNAT News. Thanks a lot.